Welcome to This Explainer. Look, we live in a world where it is literally so easy to just scroll on your phone, see what someone else has, and instantly feel like you're falling behind. It's exhausting, right? Well, today, we're exploring exactly why constantly measuring our lives against others is an absolute trap. And more importantly, we're going to uncover a timeless, super practical solution for finding actual satisfaction. We're going to dive into two powerful stories that will completely dismantle this bad habit.
Let's kick things off with a pretty tough question. Think about where your mental energy goes every single morning. When you wake up, are you focused on your own path, or are you immediately looking over your shoulder to see who's ahead of you? Because dedicating your headspace to someone else's highlight reel means you are completely missing out on your own life.
To really unpack this, I want to share a fantastic old fable. Picture this. There's a deeply unhappy crow. The bird is sitting in a tree, and he is crying so heavily that his tears are literally dropping onto the cheek of a wise monk sitting quietly on the ground below. The crow is just miserable. He's lamenting that nobody loves him, and he honestly believes death would be better than his current existence. He's entirely trapped in this vicious cycle of unhappiness, and it's all fueled by just looking at what other birds have. So the monk looks up, filled with compassion, and offers this really profound piece of wisdom. But the crow? He's just way too blinded by his own misery to even hear it. He rejects the advice completely. So the monk decides to try a magical solution. He tells the crow he'll use a special mantra to turn him into literally any bird he wants to be. But there's one catch. The crow has to go and check if that bird is actually happy first. The crow immediately decides, I want to be a beautiful white swan. So he flies off. But when he finds the swan says, "Are you kidding? I'm not happy. I have no colors." The parrot is definitely the happiest. So off the crow flies to the parrot. But the parrot tells him, "I live in constant fear of being thrown in a cage." The peacock is the happiest. It just becomes this frantic, endless journey of moving goalposts, you know? He's constantly finding someone else who supposedly has it better. And this is where the story hits the nail on the head regarding the comparison trap. The crow finally locates this prized peacock, assuming he has found the absolute peak of happiness. And sure enough, the peacock is surrounded by hundreds of admiring people. But as soon as the crowds leave, the peacock reveals his grim reality. Because of his beauty, he's permanently trapped inside a zoo cage. And worse, people painfully pluck his feathers for decorations. The peacock's day-to-day reality is entirely different from the crow's shiny assumption. You can imagine the crow is just totally stunned. His entire worldview has been turned completely upside down. The bird he thought had the absolute perfect life is actually living in pain and captivity. Desperate for a real answer, the crow asks the peacock the ultimate question. If you, with all this beauty and all this attention, aren't happy, then who on earth is? And this is the kicker. The peacock looks right at him and drops a massive truth bomb. He tells the crow that he has examined the zoo very carefully, and the crow is literally the only bird that humans don't try to lock up. The peacock admits that he spends his days daydreaming about being a simple, unbothered crow, free to just fly anywhere he wants. I mean, this completely flips the crow's perspective on his own life. He flies right back to the monk, finally happy just to be exactly who he is.
So, what's the big takeaway from our bird friends here? It's that constantly looking sideways at what everyone else is doing completely blinds you to your own everyday freedoms. The reality is super simple. There will always, always be someone who has more or less than you do. If you anchor your life to comparisons, you are actively cursing yourself to be miserable. True satisfaction only actually arrives when you focus on what you have right now.
Okay, so if we know that comparing ourselves is basically a one-way ticket to misery, where exactly should we be directing our attention? To find the ultimate antidote to this whole modern anxiety we all feel, we're going to turn to a classic story by the legendary author Leo Tolstoy. It gives us a really profound philosophical answer. Tolstoy tells this brilliant story about a powerful king who seemingly has everything. He's got armies, advisors, crazy wealth, but he is totally restless. He believes that if he can just figure out the answers to three fundamental questions, he'll never feel unfulfilled again. The questions are, when is the right time to act? Who is the most important person? And what is the most important thing to do? He basically wants a cheat code for a perfect life. But after listening to all his smartest scholars, he finds their answers completely useless. Desperate for real answers, the king basically ditches the whole royal setup. He leaves his palace, his guards, and his crown behind and ventures deep into the woods wearing just simple clothes to find this legendary wise hermit. When he finally gets there, the hermit is frail, he's breathing heavily, and he's just quietly digging the earth with a spade. The king marches up and asks his 3 grand questions, but the old man responds with complete silence. He literally just keeps digging.
Now notice the shift here. Instead of frantically chasing answers like the crow chased other birds, the king makes a really simple choice to just be present. Seeing the old man struggling, he takes the spade and quietly helps him dig for hours. But here's the wild part. What the king doesn't know is that at that exact moment, a sworn enemy is hiding in the woods right nearby, just waiting for the perfect moment to assassinate him.
But then, out of nowhere, the peace and quiet is completely shattered. A man stumbles out of the forest, bleeding heavily from a stomach wound. He'd been discovered by the king's guards. And the king? He doesn't even hesitate. He drops everything, rushes over, presses his own clothes against the wound, brings the guy water, and stays awake the entire night tending to him. The king literally spends the night saving the life of the very assassin who came there to end his.
Fast forward to the next morning, the wounded guy wakes up, completely confesses to the assassination plot, and begs for forgiveness, which instantly ends this bitter, years-long feud. The king then walks over to the old hermit, asking for the answers to his questions one last time. And the old man, who is now planting seeds in the dirt they dug the day before, quietly points out that the king doesn't need theoretical answers anymore. His own actions over the last 24 hours have already answered everything perfectly.
The hermit breaks it down, and the logic is just incredible. Think about it. If the king hadn't stayed to help dig, he would have walked right into that assassin's trap. So at that exact moment, digging was the most important thing, and the hermit was the most important person. Later on, when the bleeding man showed up, saving him stopped a vicious cycle of hatred. So then healing became the most important action, and the enemy became the most important person. It shifted dynamically based on the present moment.
And this right here brings us to the core. Actionable steps you can actually use in your own life whenever you feel that habit of comparison or that anxiety about the future creeping back in. Tolstoy distills life's massive complexity down to this really simple formula. The right time is always right now. The most important person is the one standing right in front of you, and your only real job is to just do good for them. This quote literally perfectly wraps up everything we've been talking about. We spend so much of our lives waiting for things to be perfect, looking at what others are doing, wishing we had their shiny colors or their perceived happiness. But true fulfillment isn't out there in someone else's yard. It's found by anchoring yourself entirely in the now.
So, bringing this all together, the absolute cure to that frantic, comparison-driven misery of the crow, it's the grounded mindfulness of the king. Both of these stories point to the exact same truth. You have to stop waiting. You have to stop comparing your everyday reality to someone else's highlight reel. You literally have the freedom of the crow right now if you just choose to show up fully for the reality right in front of you. I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on today as you step away from the screen and back into your own totally unique life. When you interact with the world today, just pay attention to where your eyes are drawn. Are you looking at the person next to you trapped in that vicious cycle of comparison? Or are you looking at the person right in front of you, focusing on how you can do some good in this very moment? The choice is completely yours.